In the early months of 2023, something strange started popping up all over the internet. It wasn't a new movie trailer or a celebrity scandal. It was a short video with a bold title. This video will place you ahead of 99% of people. And right there in the thumbnail, looking calm and thoughtful, was Keanu Reeves. Millions of people clicked on it. Some were curious. Others were desperate. For answers, for direction, for some kind of edge in a world that felt more chaotic by the day. The video itself was grainy, almost like it had been recorded on an old phone. A voice that sounded a lot like Keanu spoke slowly, offering lines like, "Success begins when you stop chasing it," and "The quiet ones are already winning." It felt deep, it felt real, and it spread like wildfire. But here's the thing. Keanu Reeves never made that video. He didn't film it. He didn't approve it. He didn't even know it existed for weeks. While the internet buzzed with theories and shares, Keanu was doing what he always does, living his life far away from the noise. He was in his small, unassuming home in Los Angeles, probably making coffee, reading a book, or tinkering with one of his motorcycles in the garage. There were no cameras, no scripts, no team of social media managers crafting his next viral moment. Just a man going about his day, unaware that millions of strangers were holding up a fake version of him as some kind of modern-day sage. The truth is, the video was made by someone else, someone who knew how powerful Keanu's image had become. Over the years, he'd quietly built a reputation not through flashy interviews or self-promotion, but through actions that spoke louder than words. People remembered how he gave up huge chunks of his Matrix salary, so the special effects team and co-stars could get paid fairly. They remembered photos of him riding the subway alone, or sitting on a park bench eating a sandwich like any regular person. They remembered stories, verified ones, about him visiting children's hospitals without telling anyone, or sending handwritten notes to fans who'd lost loved ones. All of it added up to a kind of quiet legend, and in a digital world full of noise, filters, and carefully staged perfection, that legend felt like fresh air. So when the fake video dropped, it didn't feel like a scam to most viewers. It felt like something Keanu would say. That's how strong his real-life presence had become, even without trying. The internet, hungry for authenticity, latched onto it instantly. Comments poured in. "This changed my life. I've watched it 5 times. Why isn't everyone talking about this?" Some people even claimed they'd applied the advice and landed jobs, fixed relationships, or finally started working on their dreams. The video wasn't just watched, it was believed. And that belief said more about the audience than it did about the video itself. What people were really responding to wasn't the words in the clip. It was the hope behind them. Hope that someone famous, someone successful, could still be kind. Hope that you didn't have to shout to be heard. Hope that being good, being steady, being present might actually be enough in a world that constantly tells you to do more, be more, sell more of yourself. Keanu, without ever setting out to be a role model, had become a symbol of that hope. And the fake video, however misleading, became a mirror for what people longed for: simplicity, sincerity, and a reminder that you don't need a spotlight to matter. Meanwhile, back in his real life, Keanu was doing the very things the video pretended to teach. He was showing up early on set, asking crew members how their families were doing, listening more than he spoke. He was donating money, not for headlines, but because he believed it was the right thing to do. He was grieving losses that most people never knew about, carrying that weight without complaint. He wasn't trying to be ahead of anyone. He was just trying to be decent. And in doing so, he'd already done something rare. He'd stayed human in an industry that often rewards the opposite. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew the truth. The video promised to put you ahead of 99% of people, but the real Keanu never saw life as a race. He didn't measure success by followers, net worth, or viral moments. For him, a good day might mean finishing a scene well, helping a friend move, or spending an afternoon fixing an old bike engine. There was no grand strategy, no secret formula, just a lifetime of small choices that added up to something meaningful. And maybe that's why the fake video resonated so deeply. Even though it wasn't real, it pointed towards something that was the power of living with integrity, even when no one's watching. As the weeks went by, fact-checkers and journalists began to debunk the video. "Not made by Keanu Reeves," headlines read. "AI voice or impersonator likely used." But by then the damage or the gift, depending on how you saw it, was already done. People had taken what they needed from it. Some deleted it once they learned the truth. Others kept it saved, not because they believed Keanu said those words, but because the message still mattered to them. And in a strange way, that was the most Keanu-like outcome of all. The focus wasn't on who said it, but whether it helped someone. Keanu himself never made a public statement about the video. He didn't need to. His life had already spoken for decades. While others chased trends and algorithms, he stayed steady. While influencers sold courses on how to win at life, he quietly gave away his earnings, showed up for strangers, and treated every person like they mattered. That consistency, day after day, year after year, was his real secret. Not a video, not a quote, just showing up fully as himself. And so, while the internet chased a phantom clip promising shortcuts to success, the real lesson was already there, living and breathing in plain sight. You didn't need a special video to get ahead. You just needed to choose kindness over convenience, humility over hype, and presence over performance. Keanu hadn't recorded a guide to beating 99% of the world. He'd simply shown, through his actions, that maybe the race wasn't worth running in the first place. Maybe the real win was in how you treated people along the way. That truth didn't need a thumbnail. It just needed time and attention to sink in. Long before anyone started sharing fake videos or turning his face into a meme for motivation, Keanu Reeves was already living the kind of life most people only talk about wanting. Not the flashy red carpet version, but the quiet everyday kind where your choices matter more than your spotlight. He didn't wake up one day and decide to become some symbol of humility. It wasn't a brand strategy or a carefully crafted image. It was just how he moved through the world, shaped by loss, grounded by love, and guided by a simple rule: treat people like people. His childhood wasn't easy. Born in Beirut, he bounced between cities, New York, Toronto, even Sydney for a while, never quite settling. His father left when he was young, and his mother, a strong but often overwhelmed woman, did her best raising him and his sister alone. Money was tight. Stability was rare. But even then, those who knew him as a kid remember him as someone who listened more than he spoke, who noticed when someone was hurting, even if they didn't say a word. That sensitivity never left him. It just got deeper with time. As he grew older and acting started to take off, most people expected him to change, to get a fancy car, a bigger house, an entourage. But Keanu stayed the same. He'd show up to auditions on his motorcycle, wearing the same worn-out jacket. He'd sit in the back of the room while other actors tried to outshine each other, not because he lacked confidence, but because he didn't see acting as a competition. To him, it was collaboration. And that mindset shaped everything he did. When The Matrix exploded in 1999, he became one of the most famous men on the planet overnight. Studios threw money at him. Fans screamed his name. Paparazzi followed his every move. But instead of leaning into the fame, he leaned away from it. He turned down massive paychecks, not because he didn't need the money, but because he believed others deserved fair pay too. During The Matrix's sequels, he gave up a huge portion of his salary so the visual effects team, the people who spent years bringing the impossible to life, could get bonuses. He didn't announce it. He didn't post about it. He just did it. And when word eventually got out, it wasn't from him. It was from crew members who couldn't believe someone at his level would do that. That's the thing about Keanu. His generosity isn't performative. It doesn't come with a press release. It's just part of how he operates. There's a story, confirmed by multiple sources, about him showing up at a children's hospital on Christmas Eve, not for a photo op, but because he'd heard a young fan was going through a tough time. He stayed for hours playing games, telling silly jokes, just being there. No cameras, no social media post, just a man spending time with a kid who needed a little light. And it's not just big gestures, it's the small things repeated over decades that reveal who someone really is. Like how he always remembers the names of the grips, the makeup artists, the drivers on set, how he'll bring coffee to the night crew because he knows they're working while everyone else sleeps, how he once gave his first-class airline seat to a woman traveling with her sick child, then quietly sat in coach for the rest of the flight. These aren't isolated incidents. They're patterns. And patterns tell the truth. What really sets him apart isn't that he's perfect, he's not. He's made mistakes, faced criticism, and gone through periods of deep sadness that most people never saw. But even in his lowest moments, he never lashed out or hid behind ego. When his partner passed away from cancer and their daughter was stillborn, the grief nearly broke him. Yet instead of disappearing or turning bitter, he kept showing up for his work, for his friends, for strangers who needed a moment of kindness. He carried his pain with grace, not because he was trying to be noble, but because he understood that suffering is part of being human, and the best response to it is often quiet compassion. In a world that rewards loudness, where being seen is often valued more than being good, Keanu chose a different path. He didn't chase trends. He didn't post daily updates about his life. He didn't sell courses or launch a lifestyle brand. He just kept doing the work, treating people well and staying grounded in what mattered. And over time, that consistency became its own kind of fame, not the kind that fades after a viral moment, but the kind that lingers in people's memories because it felt real. That's why, when the fake video surfaced, so many people believed it instantly. It wasn't just that the voice sounded like his, it was that the message felt like something he would live by. Because he already was. While others talked about mindfulness, he practiced it. While influencers preached authenticity between sponsored posts, he lived it without needing to say the word. His life became the lesson, not his words. And here's the quiet truth no one talks about enough. Being kind, being steady, being present, that's hard. It's harder than posting a motivational quote. It's harder than pretending you have it all together. It takes real courage to stay soft in a world that often rewards hardness, to keep giving when you've lost so much, to show up for others when your own heart is heavy. Keanu didn't become ahead of 99% by outsmarting anyone. He did it by refusing to play a game that didn't feel true to him. He didn't need a video to teach people how to live well. He was already showing them, one quiet act at a time. And maybe that's the real secret, not a formula, not a hack, but a choice. The choice to be decent even when it costs you something. The choice to listen more than you speak. The choice to remember that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you can't see. Keanu never set out to be a role model. He just decided long ago to be human, and in doing so, he ended up showing millions what that really looks like. While the internet buzzed with quick fix advice and overnight success stories, Keanu Reeves was doing something far quieter and far more powerful. He wasn't selling a method. He wasn't packaging wisdom into bite-sized quotes with dramatic music behind them. He was just living in a way that made people pause and wonder, how does he stay so calm? So kind, so steady? The truth is, Keanu never tried to build a philosophy brand. He didn't write a book titled The Keanu Way or launch a podcast about mastering life. But if you listen closely to the few interviews he's given over the years, real ones, not the fake clips floating online, you start to hear a pattern. Not rules, not commands, but gentle observations about what it means to be human. He once said, "The simple act of paying attention can take you far." That sounds almost too plain, doesn't it? In a world obsessed with hacks and shortcuts, paying attention feels like something your grandmother might say while folding laundry. But think about it. How often do we actually pay attention? Not just hear but really listen? Not just look but truly see? Most of us are scrolling, planning, worrying, halfway somewhere else even when we're standing right in front of someone. Keanu, though, has always seemed fully there. Whether he's talking to a reporter or a parking attendant, his eyes stay steady. His voice stays calm. He doesn't rush to fill the silence. And that kind of presence, it's rare. It's disarming. It makes people feel seen. Another time, when asked how he dealt with grief after losing his daughter and partner, he didn't offer a tidy answer. He didn't say, just stay positive, or everything happens for a reason. Instead, he said something raw and honest. Grief changes shape, but it never leaves. That line stuck with people, not because it's hopeful in a shiny way, but because it's true. It doesn't pretend pain disappears. It just says you learn to carry it differently. And in a culture that often treats sadness like a flaw to be fixed, that kind of honesty felt like a gift. Keanu also never talks about success like it's a trophy to be won. When people ask him about fame or fortune, he usually shrugs it off. "I'm just trying to do good work and be kind," he said more than once. That's it. No 5-step plan. No rise and grind mentality. Just 2 simple things. Do your work well and treat people well. It sounds almost too basic to be useful, until you realize how few people actually live by it. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone chase success at the cost of their relationships, their health, or their peace? How often do we measure our worth by likes, followers, or bank accounts? Keanu's quiet refusal to play that game speaks louder than any motivational speech ever could. He's been offered massive paychecks to do sequels he didn't believe in. He's turned down roles that would have made him even richer because they didn't feel right. He's walked away from projects that didn't honor the story or the people involved. And he's done it all without fanfare, just a quiet no thank you. That kind of integrity isn't easy. It's especially hard when you're in an industry that rewards saying yes to everything. Yes to more money, yes to more exposure, yes to whatever keeps you in the spotlight. But Keanu has always seemed more interested in meaning than in momentum. He'd rather spend months rehearsing a fight scene until it feels real than rush through it for a deadline. He'd rather sit with a grieving friend than attend a glamorous premiere. He chooses depth over dazzle every time, and here's the thing. He doesn't act like it's a sacrifice. He doesn't wear his choices like a badge of honor. To him, it's just normal. That's what makes it so powerful. He's not trying to be a saint. He's just trying to be honest with himself and with others. This is why the fake video, even though it wasn't real, felt so believable. Because the ideas in it, slowing down, being present, choosing kindness, weren't made up. They were echoes of how Keanu actually lives. The internet didn't invent his philosophy. It just noticed it. And in a world full of noise, that quiet consistency became magnetic. But Keanu's real secret isn't in what he says. It's in what he doesn't do. He doesn't complain publicly when things go wrong. He doesn't blame others when projects fail. He doesn't use his pain as content. He doesn't turn his personal life into entertainment. He protects his inner world fiercely, not out of secrecy, but out of respect, for himself and for the people he loves. That kind of boundary is another form of kindness.
In an age where oversharing is normal, choosing silence can be revolutionary.
It says some things are sacred. Some moments are just for us. And by holding that line, Keanu reminds us that not everything needs to be broadcast. Not every feeling needs an audience. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply live your truth without turning it into a performance. People often wonder how he stays so grounded when he's been through so much. The answer might be simpler than we think. He doesn't try to get over his pain. He lets it be part of him. He carries it with humility, not shame. And in doing so, he gives others permission to do the same. You don't have to be fixed to be worthy. You don't have to be happy all the time to be whole. You just have to keep showing up. With honesty, with care, with your eyes open, that's the real philosophy. Not a set of rules, but a way of being. Not something you learn from a video, but something you practice every day. In how you speak, how you listen, how you treat the person handing you your coffee. Keanu never needed a hashtag to spread his message. He lived it so consistently that people started noticing on their own. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. The best way to inspire others isn't to tell them how to live. It's to live in a way that makes them want to be better, just by watching you, no filters. No scripts, just a human being doing his best, one quiet choice at a time. The fake video kept spreading, but something unexpected started happening along the way. People didn't just watch it and move on. They began digging deeper. They started asking questions like, did Keanu really say that? Or what else has he actually done? And when they looked past the clip, past the grainy footage and the too good to be true promises, they found something far more real. They found a lifetime of quiet actions that no algorithm could fake. It began with small discoveries. Someone shared a photo of Keanu sitting alone on a subway bench, eyes down, lost in thought, just like anyone else heading home after a long day. Another person posted an old interview where he talked about giving up millions so his co-stars could get fair pay. Then came stories from crew members, real people who'd worked with him, describing how he remembered their kids' names, brought them coffee during night shoots, or stayed late just to make sure a scene felt right for everyone involved. These weren't headlines. They were human moments shared quietly over years, now surfacing because people were finally paying attention, and the more they learned, the less the fake video mattered. Not because it was exposed as untrue, but because the truth turned out to be even better. The real Keanu wasn't offering a shortcut to success. He was showing through his life that success might not be what we thought it was. Maybe it wasn't about being the loudest, the richest, or the most followed. Maybe it was about showing up with your heart intact, even when the world tries to harden you. This shift didn't happen overnight. It grew slowly like a ripple moving outward from a single stone dropped in water. A young person struggling with anxiety read about how Keanu carried grief without pretending it was gone, and felt less alone. A factory worker saw a photo of him eating a sandwich on a park bench and thought, even someone that famous can be ordinary. A single parent, exhausted and overwhelmed, heard him say, "Be kind to yourself," in a rare interview, and actually paused to take a breath. People weren't just inspired by what he said, they were moved by how he lived. And that changed the conversation. Instead of chasing a mythical secret to getting ahead, more and more began asking a different question. What would it look like to live like that? Not to become famous, but to become steady. Not to beat 99% of people, but to connect with the one person in front of you. This wasn't about copying Keanu. It was about recognizing something in him that already existed in themselves, the desire to be decent, to stay grounded, to keep going even when life knocks you down. And that realization sparked something quiet but powerful, a return to everyday kindness. People started holding doors longer, listening more in conversations, sending a text to someone they hadn't spoken to in months just to say, "I'm thinking of you." Small acts, yes, but they mattered. Because they came from a real place, not a performance. Even online, the tone began to shift. Comments under the fake video changed from, "This will make me rich," to "This reminded me to call my mom." People started sharing their own stories, not of overnight success, but of choosing patience over anger, generosity over greed, presence over distraction. The video became less of a magic key and more of a mirror, reflecting what people truly longed for. A life that felt meaningful, not just impressive. And through it all, Keanu remained unaware of the movement he'd unintentionally sparked. He wasn't giving speeches about it. He wasn't launching a foundation or selling merch with his quotes. He was just continuing to live the way he always had, showing up early, working hard, treating everyone with respect. But now the world was watching not for his fame, but for his humanity. One of the most telling moments came when a fan, after learning the video was fake, didn't feel cheated. Instead, they wrote online, "I don't care if he said those words. What matters is that his life proves they're true." That sentence captured the heart of what was happening. People weren't looking for a guru anymore. They were looking for proof that goodness still exists, and Keanu, without trying, had become living proof. It wasn't perfect. There were still critics, skeptics, and people who called it all soft or naive. But something had shifted in the air. In a culture that often celebrates winning at all costs, here was a man who seemed to win by refusing to play the game. And people noticed, not because he told them to, but because they saw it with their own eyes. School teachers started sharing his story with students, not as a celebrity lesson, but as an example of character. Parents pointed to him when teaching their kids about humility. Even coworkers began referencing the Keanu way when someone went out of their way to help without expecting anything back. It wasn't about idolizing him. It was about recognizing that the qualities he embodied, patience, empathy, resilience, were available to anyone willing to practice them. And perhaps the most beautiful part? None of it required fame, money, or special access. You didn't need a platform to live this way. You just needed to choose again and again to be kind when it's easier to be cold, to listen when you'd rather speak, to show up even when no one's watching. That's the real edge, not being ahead of others, but being true to yourself. The ripple kept growing, not in a loud viral way, but in the quiet spaces where real life happens. In kitchens, on bus rides, in late-night texts between friends. People began measuring their days not by how much they achieved, but by how much they connected. And in doing so, they found something the fake video could never deliver: peace. Keanu never asked for any of this. He didn't set out to change how people think about success, but by simply being who he was, flawed, grieving, generous, and real, he gave others permission to do the same. And in a world hungry for authenticity, that turned out to be more powerful than any scripted message ever could be. So the video faded, but the feeling it stirred didn't. Because it wasn't really about the video at all. It was about the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to lose yourself to get ahead. Maybe the real victory is staying human exactly as you are. In the end, the video disappeared, just like most things do on the internet. One day it was everywhere, The next, it was buried under newer trends, louder voices, and flashier promises. But something lingered long after the clicks stopped. Not the words from the clip, not the bold claim about being ahead of 99%, but a quiet question that settled in people's minds. What if the real secret wasn't in a video at all? Because the truth was, Keanu Reeves never tried to get ahead of anyone. He didn't wake up each morning plotting how to outshine others or climb some invisible ladder of success. He just tried to live well, with honesty, with care, with his eyes open to the people around him. And in doing that, without fanfare or strategy, he ended up showing something rare, that you don't have to be perfect to be meaningful. You don't have to be famous to matter. You just have to show up fully as yourself. That's the part no algorithm can copy. No AI voice can mimic it. No thumbnail can capture it. It's not a trick or a tactic. It's a choice made again and again, often when no one's watching. Choosing to listen instead of waiting to speak. Choosing to help even when you're tired. Choosing to keep going after loss, not because you've moved on, but because you still believe in kindness, even when the world feels heavy. And that's what people really saw in Keanu. Not a flawless hero, but a human being who kept choosing goodness, even when life gave him every reason to close his heart. He lost his father early. He watched his best friend die in a car crash. He held his stillborn daughter. He stood by his partner as cancer took her too. Most people would have turned bitter or disappeared or built walls so high no one could reach them, but he didn't. He stayed open. He stayed present. He kept showing up not with grand speeches, but with small, steady acts of decency. That's the real edge. Not being smarter, richer, or faster than everyone else, but being willing to stay soft in a world that often rewards hardness. Being willing to care when it's easier to look away. Being willing to admit you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. And here's the beautiful part. This isn't something only Keanu can do. It's available to anyone. You don't need a movie contract or 1 million followers. You just need to decide in your own life that how you treat people matters more than how you look to them, that showing up for a friend in pain is more important than posting the perfect photo, that doing your work with care, even if no one notices, is its own kind of victory. The fake video promised a shortcut, but the real lesson was always slower, quieter, and far more lasting. It wasn't about beating others. It was about becoming someone you can be proud of when you look in the mirror, someone who doesn't need applause to feel worthy, someone who knows that real strength isn't in never falling, it's in getting back up. Again and again with your kindness still intact. Over time, people stopped searching for the secret to getting ahead. They started asking different questions. How can I be more present today? How can I make someone feel seen? What small thing can I do that costs me nothing but might mean everything to someone else? And in those questions, they found something the video never offered. Peace. Because peace doesn't come from being better than others. It comes from being true to yourself. From knowing that your worth isn't tied to your productivity, your appearance, or your bank account.
It's tied to your humanity, and that's something no one can take from you. Keanu never claimed to have all the answers.
In fact, he said more than once that he's just figuring it out like everyone else. But by living with humility, by treating the janitor the same way he treats the director, by giving without expecting anything back, he showed that the most powerful thing you can be is simply human. And that's the final twist in this whole story. The video said it would put you ahead of 99% of people. But the real truth is you don't need to be ahead of anyone. You just need to walk beside them with kindness, with patience, with your heart open. Because life isn't a race, it's a shared journey. And the people who make it meaningful aren't the ones shouting the loudest. They're the ones who show up quietly, consistently, and with care. So maybe the real message wasn't in the video at all. Maybe it was in the life behind it. A life that didn't chase attention but earned respect. A life that didn't preach but practiced. A life that proved over and over that the simplest things, listening, remembering, showing up, are the ones that change the world, one person at a time. And the best part? You don't need to be Keanu Reeves to live this way. You just need to start where you are. Say thank you to the person who makes your coffee. Call someone who's been on your mind. Let yourself feel your sadness without rushing to fix it. Do your work with honesty, even if no one sees it. These aren't grand gestures. They're daily choices. And together they build a life that doesn't need a viral video to prove its worth. In the end, the internet will keep chasing the next big thing. the next hack, the next guru, the next promise of easy success. But those who've learned the real lesson won't be looking for shortcuts. They'll be too busy living, quietly, kindly, fully, knowing that the greatest advantage isn't being ahead of others, but being at peace with yourself. And that peace, it's not found in a clip. It's found in the way you move through your day, in the way you treat the stranger, the friend, the person you see in the mirror. That's where the real magic lives. Not in being better than 99%, but in being fully, beautifully, imperfectly human. And if that's not enough to get ahead in life, then maybe we've been measuring the wrong thing all along.